Most weight loss plans are one size fits all, not taking into account each person's individual needs. Noom is here to change that. Noom Weight uses psychology. That's why they say losing weight starts with your brain. But it also takes into account your unique biological factors, which also affect weight loss success. The program helps you understand the science behind your eating choices and why you have cravings. Everyone's journey is different, so your daily lessons are personalized to you and your goals. One of the great things about Noom is that it's nourishing instead of restrictive. They focus on progress instead of perfection. You don't have to give up carbs, or anything for that matter. Have cravings? Food FOMO? Noom can help you lose weight while still enjoying your favorite foods. To date, Noom has helped more than 5.2 million people lose weight. Stay focused on what's important to you with Noom's psychology and biology-based approach. Sign up for your trial today at Noom.com. That's Noom.com.
Well, hello, everyone. It's your girl, Gabrielle. Welcome to a brand new episode of Hot Topics. Sorry, okay, I focus now. Welcome to a brand new episode of Hot Topics. If you are not familiar with this show, let me tell you what this show is all about. This is the show where we like to talk that real talk. We like to focus on topics in human connections, employment, what else? Education, social services. We like to talk about health. We like to talk about mental health. We like to talk about a variety of topics on this show. If you check out our previous episodes, we've done episodes on, I think I'm just going to make that light a little brighter. Um, we've done episodes on being a child of divorce. We've talked about ADHD in length. um, what else did we talk about? We talked about um, leadership. We talked about a variety of different things. And this is the show where we like to put those quiet conversations and put that all out in the open, all for the purpose of information and education. And today is no different. So today we are going to talk about, let me tell you what we're going to talk about. We are going to talk about relationships. So, tips and, what it entails. We're also going to talk about something new that I learned the past month or so, ethical non-monogamy. I want to know all about that. That's a new thing. And I look forward to learning about that. So, all of that is going to fall under the umbrella of relationships, which is what we're going to talk about today. And the person who is going to help me out is a returning guest. He is a frequent guest on this show. He is no stranger to the hot seat. His name is Shane Thrapp, and I, Gabrielle, have brought him back to the program. So, without further ado, I am just going to let you know who he is. So, who is Shane Thrapp? Let me tell you who he is. So, Shane Thrapp is a certified life and relationship coach with a specialization in ADHD and ethical non monogamy. He founded Creating Order from Chaos Coaching to, mm, to help people mm, dealing with life's chaos to discover their own order. For 15 years, he has used his servant-based leadership to help hundreds of people find their way through life's chaotic turmoil. He uses that experience to help clients discover their passions, develop goals, create lasting habits, and learning accountability. Fabulous. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to bring Shane to the stage. Hi, Shane. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good, good. Welcome back to the hot seat. So today we are going to talk about relationships and all that comes with that. So you have a lot to say about it, and I can't wait to pick your brain about it. So I am going to hand over the baton to you, as you already know, and I'm just going to let you go ahead and say what you got to say. So please educate us on relationships.
All right. So relationships are really complicated, and they can get even more complicated when there's a lot of issues in them. One of the things I help with as a relationship coach is kind of helping people learn how to communicate, especially when it comes to people who have ADHD, which is one of my specialties. There's a lot of miscommunication happens because there's a lot of issues with like memory and stuff along those lines. And then, there's also just not an understanding your partner's love languages. And so part of my approach to relationships is kind of getting people to understand how to speak each other's languages and how to build this environment of trust and honesty and really create this foundation that they can build off of from there.
All right. So how do we do that? So I mean, what do I know? I'm not, I'm single, what do I know about relationships? Um, so, so what are maybe, how do I want to phrase it? Um, you're a coach, and these are one of the things that you work on. So, what are the common problems that come up for you in your coaching?
A lot of the most common problems will boil down to just miscommunication and just not being able to, you know, take the time to create that foundation where both people feel like they can trust the other. There's betrayals involved. There's lying. There's not telling. Even lying by omission and things of that nature. Where with all of the different issues that women and men deal with in their life, that as we get older, we don't have a lot of patience for that kind of stuff. And the biggest like um hurdles that people face is they never took the time at the very beginning to create that area, that space where everybody involved can be truly honest with each other. And when I say beginning, I don't even mean like the beginning of the actual relationship. I mean like looking at their dating profile or how they talk about themselves at the bar, or how they sit here and represent themselves in the areas that you meet them in. And because everybody puts on this mask of what we think the person is looking for, and some of us have watched those super macho alpha male YouTube videos that tell you how to meet the best girls. A lot of the women have watched these different TikToks or other shows where they have this preconceived idea of what men want in women. And there's a lot of just not being true to who we are. And so when we look at, dating and things like that, if it's clients of mine who are looking for like dating and getting into a real thing, like it's communicating with them that you need to be truly honest about who you are and identifying those things and actually being honest about what you're looking for and not wasting time with people who don't fit what your goals are in the relationship. If you're looking for somebody for just a one night stand or a little fling or just friends with benefits, be honest about it and bring those people into it. And if you're looking for somebody that's a serious kind of relationship, don't settle for somebody who's just looking for a one night stand or friends with benefits that's not looking to build up anything. You really need to be honest about what you want. And so that's kind of where we have to start. And then from there, we go into building the actual relationship once you start having the discussions about things, being upfront about different issues that you deal with. Once you learn that this person's kind of a safe person to talk to, be honest about having ADHD, having depression, having a hard time struggling with finances and things like that. Be honest with people about that stuff so that you drive the people that aren't really meant to be in your life away and bring in the people who are willing to, pay the price of admission for those kinds of things. And that's kind of where I see the biggest issues. It's just that very beginning, we don't have the ability to be truly honest about things, and we hide things from each other that honestly should be addressed within like the first, 1 to 5 dates, and from there it just gets worse. And I'll use ADHD as a good example because that's my thing, right? With ADHD, a lot of times you'll hyper focus on the person you're with for 5 to 6 to 8 months, maybe even a year. But after a while, the relationship dynamic changes because you stop hyper focusing on them. It doesn't mean that you're not, any more interested in them. You just don't give them the same intensity that you've given for the past few months. And when you don't give them that same attention they've gotten used to, and you haven't communicated with them that that's how your relationships evolve, then there's a lot of mistrust that builds up there. There's a lot of, not betrayal, but that just kind of like hard feelings right there. Like, oh, you don't pay attention to me like you used to. You don't take me to go do all the things that like you used to. And since you haven't ever communicated with them that that's what happens naturally in your relationships, there's a lot of bitterness after a year or two, and that bitterness just gets worse and worse. And so the very beginning of the thing has to be being true and honest to who you are and being authentic about what your needs are and your expectations, and expressing those in an early enough manner so that you're not dealing with hurt feelings over a month or two or a year apart.
So basically, what you're saying is to be upfront about what you want, because if you're not and you end up deceiving your partner, months down the road, maybe a year down the road, you'll run into those issues where you'll run into miscommunication and secret lives and, lies of omission. You'll run into those roadblocks where now you're butting heads with each other, all because you weren't upfront about what you want in the beginning.
Yeah. And that's one of the biggest issues that I see. The other issue that I see is people who got married or in a serious relationship too early on. Because the people who we are at 18 to 20, 18 to 22 are drastically different than the people we are at 28 to 35. And that we see a lot of the divorce rates are within that 8-year span between 18 and 35. And that, while that number's been dropping over the course of the last few years, it's dropping because less people are getting married. And, when you're dealing with that kind of evolution between who you are at 18 and who you are at 30, if you haven't built that foundation of trust and honesty and communication, then you're going to have a lot of really hard feelings there. Because again, you've changed, and if your partner hasn't been changing with you, or they haven't been evolving with you, then there's going to be some distance that starts separating you apart from each other. And as that differences start separating apart, you start having these irreconcilable differences between each other's lifestyles or personalities or the way that you do things. And that's when the relationship starts dying off. And you can fix these. You can get, go into relationship therapy and things like that. But, sometimes it's too much. It's too little, too late kind of situations. And so that's why most of the problems I see with relationships are just not building that foundation.
As you were talking, I was thinking about I don't know if you're familiar with WWE.
Hmm.
Um, when you were talking, I was thinking about Nikki Bella and John Cena, that whole relationship debacle.
Hmm.
Um, I'll just kind of run into it briefly, but basically, I think they were dating for like 6 years, and on the first date, John Cena said like straight to her face, "I don't want marriage. I don't want kids." And Nikki Bella, she wanted marriage and kids, but I guess because she liked him, she was like, "Okay, I'll." Hey, she probably was second. Well, I mean, I'm assuming, I don't know, but she was second guessing herself, and she's probably like, "Okay, I like John Cena. I don't need marriage. I don't need kids." Um, but then as the months went on and the years go on, Nikki Bella kept bringing it up, like, why don't you want to marry me? Why don't you want children? And I think there was a point where her friends were like, why don't you want kids? And John was going back and forth about it, and he was conceding at some point. He was trying to negotiate, like, okay, I'll give you marriage, but no kids, or if I marry you, will that be enough? And they kept going back and forth, and I think there was a point where John Cena just snapped and he proposed to her in the middle of WrestleMania. Um, and they were going through the wedding planning, and something just happened. I think John Cena just got cold feet and was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to get married. And Nikki Bella was just like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And this was after 6 years. So all that to say, like, John Cena did not want marriage. He did not want kids, and he told her on the first date. But Nikki Bella, she conceded, and she's probably like, okay, I don't need it. I could give it up, and but she knew in her heart she really wanted it, and I guess she kept attacking him for it. And John Cena just, I guess, kind of curled himself up and was like, okay, I'll just say whatever to make her happy, but it wasn't what he wanted, and the relationship imploded in the end. So it just, when you were saying that, it just got me thinking about that, and just saying what you want up front, which is what
Hmm.
John did, but Nikki Bella was like, okay, I don't need it. Like she was second guessing and kind of giving up uh what she wanted all for him. So I don't know if you're familiar with that
No,
whole
I am.
story. Okay. So maybe you can shed your thoughts on that whole situation.
You know, I think what is the I think Terry Crews says it best. Honestly, it's impossible to love somebody and try to control him, right? And what we see a lot of times in those situations is one or the other in the relationship feels like that if they get in the relationship that they can change the other person to fit the ideal that they have in their mind, and they don't accept the person for who they actually are. They don't accept the person for what they say and what they are putting forward as their expectations and their needs. There's a certain type of ego that sits there and says, well, I am all this in a bag of chips, and if this person wants to be with me, they'll make the changes to be with me, and that happens. And then there's the people who, like you said, who are they are really wanting to be with this person because they have this ideal in their mind of who they think is a good person for them, and they are willing to put themselves down and hold themselves back and put themselves in a situation that they eventually don't want to be in anymore. And that's really, that's the biggest problems that we see. You have to be honest up front. You have to accept what the person is saying up front, and then love them and care about them for who they are. And that's the good and the bad. Now obviously you work on things together, that's part of evolving together. And if there's things that are really unhealthy, like mental health issues or physical health issues, then you work together on those kind of things. And you both have to be in each other's corner, and you have to be speaking to each other and communicating with each other and holding each other accountable. But in the end, it needs to be somebody that you are willing to accept to be with, and not somebody who you are going to try to change to fit your ideal. That's where pain comes from. It's wasted time. We don't have we don't live long enough to sit here and change a person to what we expect them to be. We need to find the people who actually mesh with us, and then accept them for who they are, and work on the unhealthy stuff together, and get that stuff out of the way, and grow together and mature together, and enjoy the relationship from day to day, and not sit here and go, well, I expect you to be like this within 5 years. you know it's unfair to sit here and try to control somebody, and then sit here and at the same time try to say you love them. Loving them is accepting them for who they are.
So what about so basically when people say upfront what they want, so basically what you're saying is be upfront about what you want. That's one thing, but also if someone tells you what they want, you know, be honest about yourself and what
Hmm.
you want, and say, okay, if person A says, listen, I just want a one night stand, and person B is saying, I want a serious relationship, don't concede and say, okay, I could change his mind later, or once he gets to know me, he'll change his mind. Like, no, like, well, I keep saying his, but
No,
but
yeah,
it's, he'll whatever. He'll change his mind, and just know, like, if he says this is what I want, and if you know that that's not what you want, then don't settle.
yeah,
It's,
don't
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, there's no point in settling. Now, granted, if you're dating around and you're trying to find somebody who's like really worth your time and stuff like that, and you want to have a good time with somebody, on a one night stand, then cool, do that. Have fun with that. You know what I mean? And but just don't put any more expectations past that on it. Okay, I'm gonna have fun with this guy, and or this girl, and we're gonna go kick it every now and then. Maybe it turns into like a friends with benefits thing, but don't have any more expectations of it like that. Enjoy the relationship for what it is, for however long it is. And once you get to a certain point and the relationship has kind of run its course, and they're not really calling you and you're not really interested in them, then move on to find somebody else. Or during the thing, since you're not really committed to each other, have fun with other people, and then as you start finding these other relationships and stuff like that, then start exploring and seeing where they're going. It's fun, it's fine to have fun. Like, it's great to have fun. It doesn't mean you have to be a shut-in only waiting for that one person who's going to be in your life forever. It's okay to go out there and kind of play the field and see who's out there that's interesting to you, because maybe that one night stand does turn into something more. Maybe that friends with benefits does turn into something more. Maybe that person who sat here and said they were looking for a long-term relationship calls you later and says, hey, I just kind of want to be friends with benefits for now. So don't limit yourself when you're in that dating phase to only holding yourself to the one person who's going to complete you for the rest of your life. Have fun, explore the world, get to know people, enjoy yourself, stay safe, don't get people pregnant. Don't get pregnant. Make sure you're doing the things that you need to do so that you're not locked down to that person that you're not really interested in for the long term. And be true to who you are, and be honest about it, and be upfront about it, and don't really lie about it. You know what I mean? Don't sit here and mislead this guy that you're not doing anything with other guys. you know like, if he can't handle that, then he doesn't need to be in your life. Don't sit here and lie to this girl and say, okay, yeah, I'm okay with settling down, and then get, really super mad at her when she told you up front she was going to be dating with other people, and you're trying to hold her to this kind of monogamy idea, and and she didn't agree to it. So it's okay to have fun, but communicate and be effective with it, and don't hide things from each other, because again, that's where the drama happens, is when you hide things from each other, and then the other person finds out about it, and they get real mad and pissed off about it, and then everybody they know now thinks that you're an asshole, and everybody sits here and thinks that person's an asshole, and you're just causing drama in your life that's just boring and stupid.
So now, what about when people just, let's say that the two people are in a long-term relationship, and then something happens, and one doesn't love the other anymore, like they fall out of love, as they say. What do you say to that?
It kind of depends on the circumstances. Like if you've spent the time together and you've really developed that communication style with each other, and you've really developed that honesty and that foundation, there's a lot of times where you can work things out, especially if both are available to go to like relationship counseling and stuff like that. But at the same time, when you have that foundation, that sometimes it's just not going to work out, and being honest with each other about it and figuring out what that looks like, what does that relationship turn into. That's when we can start actually seeing, instead of holding on to that relationship and like really trying to fight for it and dig through everything and dig through all the negativity, maybe y'all need a break. Maybe y'all need to separate for a little while, or maybe it needs to be a permanent break. And you have to really be honest with each other about what that looks like. And then one person, because if y'all aren't willing to be able to fix things together, then this may be a point where y'all need to be apart and work on each other. Again, sometimes when we are growing older, especially from that 18 to 30-year-old range, we just grow apart. And what happens a lot of the time, because our society is so fixated on relationships lasting for as long as they fucking possibly can, we don't acknowledge the danger signs that we see, and we don't acknowledge the pain points that are coming up, and we keep lying to ourselves, and we keep lying to our partner, and bitterness starts building up. And as that bitterness starts building up, we start seeing fractures happening. And if there's children involved, they see it as well. Because all the parents out there say, I don't argue around my kids. I don't fight with them around my kids. It doesn't matter. Kids are extremely perceptive about parents, because parents are the triggers for their fight and flight reflexes. And there are subconscious cues that they see and they hear and they pick up all of the time when there's stress with mom or dad, or with dad and dad, or with mom and mom. They pick those cues up, and now one of the parents or both are dangerous. And so this causes a lot of stress and trauma to the kids. And so, you have to take the time to really evaluate your relationship and who you are. And your partner has to do the same thing. And you can fix things with relationship therapy and counseling and coaching. But if you can't, you need to separate sooner than later.
So, what about? I mean, I think in some relationships there may be a fear of being alone. Um, so, what do you say to those people who have that fear?
You have to be honest with who you are again. It all boils down to that. You have to be honest with who you are. You can sit here and say, I'm afraid of being alone. Okay, that's fine. Are you afraid of being, in a relationship that's miserable for the next 15 years or 5 years or 10 years? You know what I mean? Which is the worst outcome? Are you willing to put your kids through the trauma that's about to happen over the course of the next few years because your partner is bitter and they're lashing out at you? Are you going to put your kids through that kind of trauma where you're bitter and because your needs aren't getting met, and they're you're lashing out at them even when the kids aren't around? You have to acknowledge that. You have to figure out what fear you have more. Are you afraid of being alone, or or are you more afraid of being with somebody that you're miserable with? because you can fix that, right? You can fix the whole, being alone thing fairly easily. All you got to do is get back out there and start finding other people, because there's 7 billion people on this planet. There's going to be somebody out there. There's going to be multiple people out there who can find relationships and who you can have fun with. There's people out there that you can be involved with that, are a better fit for you as who you are now and who you're going to grow to be. And so if you're afraid of being alone, you need to look at the actual alternative. And the alternative is being miserable with somebody. And I feel like most people will sit here and say, I don't want to put myself through that. I feel like most people will sit here and say, I don't want to put my kids through that. And they'll make the right call for themselves and for their kids if they have them.
So I think another thing to look at as well is the societal pressures of being in a relationship. I'm thinking in terms of a lot of I'm thinking. I trying to find the right way to phrase it. I think non-white cultures, I think there tends to be more pressure in terms of being in a relationship, and getting married and having children and locking it down and being with them forever. Um, so there's that internal, there's external, really, that the external pressure of being in a relationship, and even myself personally, not that my parents have said anything, but there's that fear, that haunts me, and that my sister's married and my brother's married, baby on the way, and I'm still unmarried. I still don't have kids. I'm about to be 35, and there's that fear that haunts me about being single and being in my 30s and being in my 40s and being single. So um, again, not that again someone has said this to me, but it's in the air. So
I understand.
so what do you say to people that have these societal pressures and these cultural pressures of being in a relationship?
They need to tell their cultural pressures to fuck the fuck off. You know what I mean? Um, I say that, and I know that's not easy, right? Because we all grow up, and especially if we're over the age of 30, we all grew up with parents who have sat here and talked about how happy they're going to be when they're able to be grandparents, and we all have the parents, especially religious parents, who expect if you're with somebody, you're getting married to them eventually. And we all deal with the parents with expectations, especially LGBT people, who are expecting you to be with somebody that they have an ideal that they expected you to be with, right? But we have to be honest with who we are. We have to be truthful about who we are. We have to be upfront with that, and then we need to be firm on that. We need to set that boundary with our parents and the people who are around us to sit here and say, I don't want to get married. I don't want to have kids. I'm okay not having kids, and you need to be okay that you're not going to be a grandparent with me. If you want babies, you can have more babies yourself, and because there's no point that anybody should sit here and say, well, you should do this thing because I want these things. Again, remember my Terry Crews quote earlier, if you love somebody, you can't control them. And that applies to other relationships. That applies to your family members and brothers and sisters and friends. If they really truly love you, they can't sit here and control you, at a certain point. And, you have to be honest with who you are and what your expectations are and what your desires are. And if you don't want to have kids, then don't have kids. if you want to have kids, then find you a partner that you can have kids with, or find you a way where you can adopt and things of that nature. Reassure your parents and your friends and family that, just because you're in a same-sex relationship or a multiple partner relationship, that, yeah, you're still going to have kids. There'll probably be a different direction, different way of than you expected, maybe adoption, maybe artificial insemination, just be upfront and communicate that with people. But you can't let people pressure you into a relationship or into having kids when you're not ready for it or don't want it.
That's a fair point. I think that um, we want to be in a position to want, to want to be with someone else, to want to be married, to want to have kids, because if we're forced into it, and something just fell. When we're forced into things and we don't really want it, then there's this feeling of resentment that just grows and grows and grows, and it eventually it explodes.
Yeah.
So so it's like the running water in a cup. The water, it builds and builds and builds, and eventually it overflows. So there's a point when you get into something that you don't really want to do. There's there's a small bit of resentment, a small bit of anger, and it's there, but and then it just adds and adds and adds and adds, and eventually it explodes.
Yeah, I was in a relationship like that when I turned 22. I'd been in this church for a while now, and I met this woman, and at first things were really great. She, there was a few red flags, and I should have paid a bit more attention to them. And but I really liked being around her, and she actually helped me out a lot. She helped me mature a lot more. She got me off drugs. You know what I mean? She helped me get clean. She started really she really started following me into the church, and we both got really very involved in the church. And I really, really cared about her. But we had moved in with each other eventually, and my leadership in the church, as I was kind of going through seminary at this point, the leadership in the church was like, well, you can't really be living with a woman and be a leader in the church without being married, right? And they kind of had those conversations with me a couple of times. And then, a few months later, she got pregnant. We just weren't being that careful. And at that point, my church was like, you've got to get married, because now that child's going to get born into sin. And, all kinds of bad shit can happen. That baby dies, they'll go to hell, you know. And so there was a lot of pressure for my church to get married to her. But then at the same time, I also had a bunch of my friends going, dude, she's isolated the fuck out of you. Like, she has driven all of your friends off. And then they were raising a lot of these really valid red flags, to me. But, I ignored them. And we wound up moving away to Maryland from Texas, and I got really isolated, and I started just having to deal with a lot of abuse. She wouldn't acknowledge mental health issues with me. She wouldn't acknowledge the work I was doing, because I was working like 80 to 100 hours a week just to kind of support her and the kids, because she wanted to be a housewife. And I was working so much. I was working 12 to 16 hours a day, and I'd come home and she'd still expect me to be doing dishes or something along those lines around the house. And I was just so tired, because I was only getting like 4 to 6 hours of sleep, and I didn't have any kind of me time or anything like that. And, it just got worse and worse and worse. And it literally is like, I wound up getting PTSD from it. I wound up being really shitty to my kids because of it. It really scarred my kids a whole lot, to the point that it's really rough having a relationship with them now, because I messed up so much. And, I love my kids to death, but I wish I had been smarter about their mother, because I I did so much damage, and she did, to them, and she did so much damage to me that none of us have ever healed from it completely.
So, and that's another thing too. And we won't have time to talk about the ethical non-monogamy.
Sorry.
Sorry, guys. Next time, next episode. But and then just okay. Going back to this and the red flags. Your friends were telling you these red flags and you didn't listen. So my thing is, when should you listen to the flags and when shouldn't you? Are they? I guess it's sort of like you got to look at it yourself, but
Mhm.
sometimes your friends say things because they want you to break up for ulterior motives. So
Mhm.
how do you determine, are they really trying to help me or are they really trying to hurt me?
That goes to my original thing, is making sure that the relationships that you're forming around you are built on honesty, trust, and communication. That includes your family and friends. You know, you need to be making sure that the friends that you are friends with are people who really have your back, and so that whenever they do tell you something, that you can trust them, and that you can sit here and say, you know, they sit here and say, hey, I don't know if you notice this thing is happening, and you need to be aware of it, and then you need to be able to sit here and go, all right, I trust this person's opinion, I trust this person's thought process, I need to evaluate this and really look at it, maybe ask other friends questions and see if they've noticed anything, and then make a really objective, honest decision at that point. And that's really hard, especially in abuse situations, because sometimes sometimes abusive partners can really hide that, but that's where you kind of have to be very, very aware of what abuse looks like, and be very honest um with what you're willing to put up with. And then when that boundary is broken, it needs to be done. Like, you should never deal with abuse. Like, you should never put up with it. Now, that's easier said than done, because again, people hide that shit. But at the same time, you just have to you have to sit here and really be careful of who you're with, and make sure, again, you're building that foundation at first, and really have very firm boundaries as to what is okay and what is not okay. And then communicating that, and being strict with it, and not letting things happen that you just brush off. If he hits you, or if she hits you, it's done. That needs to be a hard boundary, because again, we should never deal with abuse. If they are always constantly being negative towards you, or never willing to go to counseling with you, or never willing to work on things with you, and they're always wanting you to bend to their will, and they're never looking for a compromise, it's either their way or the highway, you need to look at that and say, okay, these are all red flags that I need to be aware of, and I need to get away from this person. And you know that's when you walk away, you know and don't let yourself be put into a situation where you're being isolated. Learn what the signals are for abusive behavior, or narcissistic behavior disorders, or um, borderline personality disorders, where it gets very dangerous to be around that person. You need to be aware of those things and be upfront and honest about what you are able to process and deal with, and stuff like that. And then if there's any lines crossed that you put out there as boundaries, you need to make sure that you're ready to walk away.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think, just on that line of abuse, I just want to emphasize that it's we expect women to do that, to look for the signs of abuse, and when you see it, walk away. But I also should say that men need to do that as well.
Hmm.
And when you told your story of your first wife, you eventually you got away, and yes, there was some damage along the way, but you got away, and that's it's it's on both sides. It's not just women need to we expect women to acknowledge abuse and deal with it, but I think the same expectation should be on men as well. And we need to acknowledge um, that, women can be abusive too. So,
Mhm.
women can hurt, women can be abusive. So I just want to emphasize that men should be aware of the signs of abuse and have the courage to walk away like you did.
Yeah. We look at the statistics as far as that is concerned. We look at I think it's 47% of marriages are divorced due to abuse, right? And we look at, you know, when you look at the abuse statistics, I think 82% of them are women being abused by men. Uh, and the abuse, the men being abused is somewhere between 13 and 17%. The reason that that's such a fluctuating number, though, is how many men actually admit to being abused, right? The statistical um, plus or minus there, the variance there is probably a lot higher, because a lot of men just they don't acknowledge the abuse because it's not manly to acknowledge the abuse. They don't consider emotional abuse. They only look at physical abuse as abuse, right? And that's a cultural thing, right? We grow up, we see our parents yelling at each other, and that's normal. And we grow up, and we hear parents talking shit about each other, and that's normal. And then we get into those relationships, and like we talk shit at each other, and there's the funny haha kind, and then there's the really mean shit, and we don't acknowledge that. And when the wife is being super negative all the time, or if she's constantly gaslighting somebody, men don't see that as abuse. They see that as, oh, that's just what women do to men. And that's a problem. And we really need to start, as a society, really need to start looking at that and understanding how to recognize abuse as men, and recognizing the damage that emotional abuse causes to men. Because again, as men, we don't express our emotions the way we should. We don't have a lot of times we don't have healthy coping mechanisms. We don't have healthy ways of processing our anger and our aggressiveness. And so when somebody is really emotionally abusive to us, it turns into now us responding with violence or responding with our own version of abuse. And we need to start acknowledging that emotional abuse sometimes can be the trigger for a lot of cases where we see domestic abuse happening from men. There's just been so much abuse by the woman that this has happened, and vice versa. There's been so much abuse by a man that a woman starts lashing out at him in certain ways and starts abusing him in certain ways. So that's kind of where we go back to what I said earlier about when we need to start recognizing when a relationship is over. Men need to understand when abuse is actually happening to them, and women need to understand that, there's a certain level, there's certain boundaries that should never be crossed. And building that foundation of communication and honesty and trust, that's how we get moving forward into healthy relationships and healthy separations.
Mm, that that is, that is definitely great advice. So speaking of advice, this kind of took a different turn.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's okay. But we got to start to wind things down. So, do you have any last words of wisdom that you would like to share?
Yeah, ignore the cultural and societal expectations of a relationship. You know, enjoy the relationship from day to day. I said that earlier, but don't expect a relationship to have to last forever. Don't expect a relationship to be a success if one of you dies, right? That's not a success. A success is how happy you are throughout the however long the relationship lasts. If that's a one night stand and y'all are both happy when you walk away from each other, that's a successful relationship. If it's a friends with benefits and eventually it turns into just friendship, or y'all just kind of part ways happy with each other, that's a successful relationship. if y'all were together for 10 years and eventually just came to realize that y'all had kind of grown apart and things weren't really working out, and y'all broke up amicably, and the kids have a healthy relationship with both parents, that's a successful relationship. Get out of your head that a successful relationship depends on length of time. A successful relationship is one that lasts as long as you want it to, and is happy, and y'all enjoy the journey together.
Awesome. All right, Shane, thank you so much for this enlightening conversation. And you guys, um, Shane is a relationship coach. He's also an ADHD coach. He's he's a lot of coaches.
Yeah.
And if you are looking for those services for yourself, or if you want to learn more information about him, you can visit his website www.creatingorderfromchaos.com, and he is all over that social media. So he's also on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok. So definitely hit him up on that social media. All of that information is on his website. So I encourage you to go to his website, learn more about him and his coaching services, and definitely follow him on social media. So of course, all of this information will be provided in the description, depending on what platform you are either listening or viewing this right now. But all of this information will be in the description. And for those of you viewing this, it is also on the screen. So Shane, do you want to briefly talk about your business? I know I did, but maybe it's something else you want to add.
Yeah, whenever somebody sits and says, "Oh, you're a lot of coaches," that's because I help people with ADHD primarily, and a lot of working with people with ADHD is an entire lifestyle change, and so that means helping them communicate with their spouses. That means communicating with their friends. That means communicating with their bosses. And so, whenever I deal with people with ADHD, it's a life thing, and it's also a relationship thing, and in many cases it's a career thing. And so I get to do all of those things, and I enjoy it. I'm actually now branched out. I actually help businesses with their employees and kind of help them kind of like with career training and leadership understanding and like development and stuff like that. So I wear a lot of hats because I have ADHD, and that's how my brain works.
Yeah. There you go. So again, if you are looking for, if you're looking for a coach, ADHD coach, relationship coach, business coach, any kind of coach, if you're looking for that, please hit him up right now. His website again is www.creatingorderfromchaos.com. You could also find him on social media. All of that information will be in the description somewhere, wherever you are encountering this episode. It is somewhere in the atmosphere. So I'm just going to refer you over there instead of rattling all that off. So I encourage you to check him out and seek his services. All right, Shane, thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate your time being
Thank
here.
you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Of course. All right. All right, I will let you go now. And you guys, it is just you and me. All right, so we have reached the conclusion of our episode. Thank you so much for joining me today. So, wherever you are listening to the sound of my voice, I encourage you to check out our platform for more videos and clips, and don't forget to follow us. Follow, subscribe, whatever the button is, don't forget to stay in touch with us. And while you're at it, please let us know what you thought about this episode by leaving a comment in the comment section or in the comments thread. And as a reminder, this web series is a production of A Step Ahead Tutoring Services. So if you would like to learn more about the company, what we offer, what we're all about, you can check us out online. Our website is www.astepaheadtutoringservices.com. And we have a lot of social media as well. So Facebook, Twitter, Eventbrite, WhatsApp, Instagram. We cover a lot of ground. So definitely look us up on social media. And I also want to let you know that we have a 15% discount going on right now if you let us know that you heard about us from Hot Topics. So if you reach out to us because you're looking for a tutor for yourself or for your child, and you say, "Hey, I heard about you from that Hot Topic show," we'll give you 15% off 6 hours of tutoring. So definitely take advantage of that coupon. And I also encourage you to sign up for our email list and our texting list. You will receive exclusive promotions, discounts, offers, everything, and just you will be all in the knowing with all that is a step ahead tutoring services. So I encourage you to sign up for our email list and our texting list. That information is in the description somewhere in the universe, depending on where you are encountering this episode. And of course, it is on your screen for those of you who are viewing this episode right now. All right, and time is going, so I just want to make sure that we get this final message in before we officially close.
Hey there, have you heard of us? We're a small team of tutors here at A Step Ahead Tutoring Services. We believe that education and information should be accessible to everyone, regardless of income, race, or creed. We're dedicated to making this happen, but we need your help. Please consider making a donation to our company. No amount is too small. Your donation will allow us tutors to remain employed, offer free and low-cost services, put on productions like this web series, and reach out to families nationwide. With your help, we can tackle the academic challenges of our students and the emotional, mental, and behavioral changes that result from these challenges. As a bonus, we can improve our communities in the process. Support us today. Send your donation by Cash App to $ASATS 2013, by PayPal or Venmo to @ASATS 2013, or by Zelle to success@astepAheadTutoringServices.com. Let us know if you have any questions. Please note, we're a for-profit company. We're not a charity. Your donation may not be tax deductible. Please consult a tax professional.
Yes, yes, yes. And I do want to just share this quick note. For those of you who are watching this episode on Facebook Live during this broadcast, you could support A Step Ahead Tutoring Services by sending stars. It is a digital gift that helps us earn money. So I encourage you guys, if you are watching this on Facebook Live right now, I encourage you to send us stars. So it is a way for us to earn money through Facebook. So I encourage you to do that. Your donation will be appreciated. All right, you guys. So we are done. Thank you so much for putting up with us for all this time. I encourage you to watch the next episode. I'm going to grab Shane again, and we're going to make sure we talk about that ethical non-monogamy because I really want to learn about that. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to close. Thank you so much for joining us. And now I am signing off. Bye.